Hey, there you guys are. I am back, back from Glen Elder, Kansas. Took the weekend, went out and rode a race myself. So typically, I'm a mountain bike coach, and I help some kids, sixth grade through 12th grade, perform well racing their mountain bikes. And so they have a race series that is pretty short. It's in the spring, and it's over, right? And so now here we are, a couple months after race season is over, and an event at one of those venues popped up called Cruise the Blues. And apparently, Cruise the Blues has been going for like 21 or 22 years. And since I'm new to Kansas, a lot of these facts are news to me. So, Cruise the Blues is fairly decent sized event. It's at Palin Family Farms. It's to me in the middle of Kansas, right? But it's Glen Elder, Kansas. And I don't know, it's probably half hour off of I-70 if I was gonna, kind of give a location. And so they had a downhill event, they had a gravel event, they had a mountain bike event. Now, the downhill event, gonna be honest with you, I was scared. You got to remember, I come from Southern California. I have an enduro bike, right? So I ride a Giant Rain Advance 1, but I'm 57 years old, and I'm like, a downhill race? I don't think I'm going to do a downhill race. I don't want to get injured, hurt, any of the stuff. I work for a living. Like, I don't want to mess with this. I'm 57. Slow down. Stop. I was in my mind thinking about Greer and Santiago Oaks, and some of the stuff that we did, even in Chino Hill State Park. I was thinking about rock drops and outcroppings and all these things. Folks, this was like a flow trail. if I'm going to be honest, it was like a flow trail that went down this hill, and it had a couple of these and it had a couple of these, right? But none of them were doubles, none of them were triples, none of them landed in rock gardens, none of that. I thought that they were going to like bring in boulders for this thing, but it didn't. And then, although they had the safe way out all the time, they had these 3 jumps that were like limestone, and they were like these stone ramps that would be like near the side of the trail, and you could take one of the stone ramps and go down. Now, you could practice over there. So I signed up Saturday, and I brought both bikes. I didn't know which race I was going to sign up for. Am I going to do mountain bikes, or am I going to do a gravel race? And it was 100 degrees. So if it's 100 degrees outside, I started thinking to myself, okay, if I do mountain biking, it's going to be a slower speed, but I'm going to be in the woods. And you get 3 hours to do as many laps as you can. And then the gravel race is 3 hours, as many laps as you can. But a lap is 18 miles. And then I thought to myself, if it's gravel riding, if I can go 13, 14 miles an hour, I'm always going to have some kind of a breeze, right? And so in my mind, I thought the gravel riding would be the easiest because I'm not in the same physical shape I was 2 years ago. And so I thought, okay, the last organized ride that I really participated in was a couple of years ago, one that was substantial, and I was in much better shape. And so I thought, well, let's just do the gravel ride. So I signed up for the gravel ride. And as I was signing up for the gravel ride, they were saying, oh, do you want to do the downhill? Do you want to do the downhill? And I said, no, I'm pretty intimidated by it. I don't want to get hurt. And I was being really honest about it, really transparent. Folks, I went over to practice on the downhill, and there were a couple of dudes that I recognized as coaches. And I said, hey, have you guys done it? Yeah, we did it. What's it like? Oh, it's not bad. And then they said, and the jumps, you can just roll off the jumps. Everything here is rollable. So don't worry about it. I said, why don't you guys go first, and I'll follow at a fair distance. So they went, and I thought I was going to follow at a fair distance. But when we finished up at the end of the trail, I was like kind of right behind them. And the jumps, out of the 3 jumps, I did 2 of them. I didn't do the last one. The last one had the approach perspective that looked like it was going to send you to the moon. And so I was like, I'm not looking to do anything crazy. But then I looked at it again, and I thought, and then one of the dudes said, oh yeah, that last jump's really cool, because if you just roll it, and then when you land, you're going to land right on the face of the downhill, and it's just going to carry you through. It's going to be fun. And so They had shuttles, which was really cool. And so I threw my bike on the shuttle, took me back up to the top. I ended up doing this thing 4 times. Was doing all the jumps, was having a blast. There was one jump I kept over jumping a little bit. You would jump and land in a corner and then in this berm and go around the berm. But I was landing high up on the berm and there were some rocks up there and I was knocking some rocks down. And so I knew I probably needed to come into that with a little less heat. So I'd kind of land mid berm and then carry through. There's something to recognize in what I'm describing. I was scared to do a downhill race in Kansas because of my downhill experience in California. Let that sink in for a little bit. I denied myself the opportunity to participate at a high level in this downhill race because in my mind, I was expecting Southern California, but I'm not in Southern California. I'm in Kansas. And so on my fourth run down that hill, I timed myself and I timed myself at 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't like pedal super hard out of the hill because you would go do the downhill and then there was like this slight grade to go up, get back on the road. It's like a little fire road driveway thing. And then you go down about 1/8 of a mile to the there was a big canopy and that was the finish line. And so that's where the timing would stop. And so I didn't like sprint up that hill. I did the fourth run and I kind of pedaled up, but I didn't sprint. And it came to 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And at the time, I didn't know if that was good or bad or indifferent or whatever. They had the results broken into age groups. Folks, I didn't do the downhill race because my brain wasn't in line with it. I was intimidated and I was nervous. And here's the truth of it. If I would have done the downhill race and just done the run that I did on my fourth practice lap, I would have come home with hardware. Like I literally would have won trophies and come home. When I did the gravel ride the next morning, the gravel ride, again, 18-mile laps, and you do as many laps as you want in 3 hours. And when the whole pack took off, I found myself doing what I do. My brain was wanting to compete. My brain was wanting to ride with everybody. My brain was wanting to be an active participant in this event. My body is not where it was 2 years ago. And so we take off, we leave the farm, we go down the road, we go to this lone hill where we did the downhill race the night before. But now on the gravel bike, I got to climb that hill, right? So you climb that hill, then you ride around the top of that hill a little bit, then you come down the other side of that hill, and it leads you back to the driveway thing. And then you're back out onto the road, and then you've got another 13, 14 miles to do on gravel roads. And then that takes you, I shouldn't say 13 or 14 miles to go. You have, because like the last mile and a half is on the mountain bike trail back at the farm. And so you come off the road and you go into the mountain bike trail, and then you do about a mile and a half in the mountain bike trail, and that kicks you out in the middle of the farm, and then you finish the lap, right? So you've got, I don't know, like two miles to get to the Lone Hill place. And these are guesstimates. I'm not being real. So you got like maybe 2.5 miles to get to Lone Hill. And then you're doing a couple of miles inside Lone Hill. When you come out there, you're like at 6.5 miles done, but it's an 18-mile lap, right? So now you've got another 12 miles to go. You're looking at your little computer and you're like, okay, I got 12 miles to go. But like the last mile and a half, 2 miles is going to be on the mountain bike trail. And so in essence, you're like, okay, I've got 10 miles to go on the road and then a couple miles mountain bike. I'm making this more complicated than it is. Here's the deal. Going into Lone Hill, making the turn, everyone makes the turn. And as I'm going up the small climb to get to Lone Hill, pulling into that park, everyone's making a right-hand turn. And so I'm looking in front of me and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like in 7th place. I don't know what the heck I'm doing because there's young people up there. There's a kid in high school who's like state champion or some crud like that. He's up there. There's a girl that just did the Unbound 200-mile gravel ride. She's right there. I am not I'm not in this crowd. And so I mentally manually mentally had to turn off that switch. I had to say, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I had passed a bunch of people and I was like, why am I passing people? I'm just doing this for the ride. I'm not doing this for the race. I'm just doing this for the ride. I just want to socialize and hang out with some folks. And so I literally geared down and just started the climb. As I'm doing the climb, people are just going by, right? All the people I passed, I'm just letting them pass me. We get up to the top of the hill. I ride around, I stop, I make a Facebook Live, I take some pictures. I'm looking for friends. And then I ride back down the hill. I end up on the road. I ended up on the road by myself for the whole road part of it, almost the whole road part of it. I got to about 13 miles and I looked up and like 3, 4 hills, because Kansas has a lot of this, right? And so 3 or 4 of those hills away, I see the silhouette of a bicycle. And I'm like, huh, there's my rabbit. And then I'm like, nope, 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 stop, stop, stop. Not a race, not a race. They're calling it a race. I am not in a race. So I convinced myself, just ride your own ride. Just ride your own ride. Like, you know, someone's ahead of you, but you're not going to sprint to catch them. Just ride your own ride. And every little crest that I would go over, I would see that I was closer to the silhouette. And about 4, maybe 5 of these little hills away, I come up and we're side by side. And I said, hey, how you doing, man? I thought I was going to ride this whole thing by myself. It's good to see you. And he looked at me like he was dying. And it was hot. It was starting to get really, really hot out there. There was no shade. We're getting close to 90, 95 degrees at this point. It was about 10:30 in the morning. I started getting a wicked cramp in my right foot. I don't know what causes this cramp, but it's been coming on a lot lately when I bicycle for longer distances. And so I started getting this wicked cramp, and I'm like, do I stop now and take off my shoes, or do I stop at the end of the lap? Am I even going to do 2 laps? 18 miles is great. Who says I need to do 36? And so I'm having these thoughts. And as we get closer to dipping into the mountain bike trail, I look up at this guy and I go, hey, who'd have thought we'd be catching people? Because we could see other riders in front of us. And I said, hey, who'd have thought we'd be catching people? And that was kind of the inspiration to just really finish that lap well. And so we dove in, did the forest ride. And I got to say, my friends that told me that I should do the mountain bike ride because it would be in the woods and it would be in the shade, they were the smart ones. As soon as we got off the road and dipped into the woods, I was like, oh, that feels so good. I mean, it felt like dipping into a cool pond compared to being out on that gravel road in the direct sunlight. And so, like I said, I had that wicked cramp in my foot, and I thought to myself, let's just head back to the pits. Let's take our shoes off, stretch out a little bit, and let's wait 5 or 10 minutes and see how we feel. And if we feel up to it, let's go out and hit another lap. Maybe it'll be fun. But if we feel like, hey, that's it, we've had the fun for the day, then let's do that. And remember, I did 10 or 11 miles the night before, running those practice laps and getting familiar with the terrain out there. And so it was a really good time. The weekend was phenomenal. Teammates that run with us during the spring season with mountain biking, they were there. Some of the younger kids were there. The parents that are adults adult coaches, they were there. And it was just great to get together with everybody again, in the off season and do something really, really fun. Now, I have spent, the first 14, 15 minutes of this video talking to you about how great the weekend was, what the challenges were, what the mental gymnastics were to have fun and make this a successful event. I took the camper van. I went by myself. I brought both bikes with me. I participated in both mountain bike and gravel events, not the formal events, but the practices and hanging around with everybody. We cooked out, right? So we had like a team. We had like a team meal, team get together. We had some adult beverages. The other adults there, they're like microbrew beer fanatics, and so we had a couple adult beverages. And it was just so pleasant, just so great to be there and hang out with everybody, and then to get that done. And so now here we are. It's Monday. And I think to myself, okay, it's Monday, it's a new week. Now, there are some people that would say if you wake up on a Monday and you wonder what this week's challenges are, you're not running a business, you're running a chaotic adventure. I don't necessarily believe that. I have structure, I have goals, I have things. But as I approached today, I thought to myself, okay, today, what are we going to do today? How is this going to take shape today? And as I look at my calendar, I'm in here saying, okay, we're good. We're clear. There's no meetings scheduled in the morning. We're clear. So okay, you've got this project, this project, this project. And so I'm hitting myself with what are my priorities and how are my clients leaning on me against those priorities? How do I make sure I'm keeping everybody happy and doing their thing? That's one thing. That's one thing. But here's what I want to do. I want to go just a step deeper. The race is done. So what challenge is next? And it made me think, how are people wired? How am I wired? Like I'm wired. I remember when I did that big weight loss thing in 2017. When I finished the weight loss challenge and I got down to about 205 pounds, and I felt really good at 205. I did. I felt really good at 205. I felt capable. I felt strong, but light and flexible enough to execute, to do things. And I didn't want to be much lighter. Like the coaches were like, your goal weight's 169 based on your height. And I'm like, yeah, based on my bone and muscle structure, I don't think my goal is 169 anything. I like having some bulk on me. I like to be able to pick big things up. And so I was very happy at the 205. And that's where I kind of checked out of that program at 205. For me to maintain fitness in and around that level, I had to have a challenge almost monthly. And I remember this in the most fond ways possible. So 2018, I took my wife to Italy and I ran the Spartan Super Race in Orte, Italy. Some people would say that's extreme. They would say, what are you doing? Oh my goodness, what a waste. It wasn't a waste. We had corporate miles on our Delta account. We had miles on our Hilton Honors, not miles, but whatever they call that on the Hilton Honors account. We had, it was cheaper for me to take my wife to Italy than it would have been to take her to San Diego for a weekend. So I ran my Spartan Super Race in Italy and it was phenomenal. It was great. Now, just about every month after that, there was a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, a Spartan event, a century ride on a bicycle, some kind of weekend I was going to do with the fellas from the office with mountain biking. One day we went to on a Saturday, we set up like these shuttle rides that took us on like a 12 or 15 mile mountain bike ride from the top of a hill all the way down to another one. It was like just outside of Lake Elsinore in Southern California. There was always something to look forward to do. Now, COVID came along and it seemed like a lot of that stuff just vaporized and blew up. Now, a couple of things happened. During COVID, I started road biking a lot more. And I hooked up with some dudes that weren't scared, didn't have to wear masks, didn't mind about riding together. And we rode through COVID most weekends. And I was still hitting 75, 100 miles a week on the bicycle. But I didn't have an event to do every month. And I noticed that without that planned event, without something to gear up for, without something to look forward to, it took more personal discipline to stay fit than I really wanted to expend. I'm just being honest, just being clear. Everyone's made different. There are some people that need that challenge, that need that periodic, like I'm getting ready for the next big thing. And then they need to execute the big thing, come off of that giant dopamine hit of having participated and etched them, pass, fail, or otherwise, you participated, etch your mark on that one and then move on to the next challenge. There are some people that need those challenges. And then there's other people that just seem to muddle through. There's some people that just seem to carry the same bandwidth, the same frequency, ad infinitum. Just there's some people that can just muddle through. Now, maybe they don't have these giant high points of successes and these low points of failed challenges and stuff. People that need the challenge are kind of really working on this seesaw of challenge, kill, start over, challenge, kill, start over, right? And that kind of gives you emotionally this, but it's that emotional charge that gives you that inspiration to keep chugging through. Other people are just muddling through, and and then, there's going to be arguments. There's going to be, well, that personality type, this has the ability to springboard and knock something out of the park. You've got a higher propensity to knock something out of the park. And there's an argument that these people will stay the same all the time. That's not necessarily true either, right? Because as they're muddling through, they could come across something that ends up being amazing. So there's that. And then there's this really rare person. Now, some people try to put me in this category because there have been times when there are no outward signs of inspiration whatsoever, and something magical happens in my sphere. Now, is it my faith in God? Is it because I'm a believer? Is it all these things? People are going to argue and put that on the seesaw of life, right? How does that really work? But there are some people that are so wired to be internally driven that even when there's not a monthly event or a quarterly event or whatever, they're going to stay driven. They're going to keep with it. They're going to keep with the mojo. And it's a different vibe than the muddling through, right? Muddling through is like, it's like middle management that stays in middle management and never runs a fear of being laid off, but never runs the fear of being promoted, right? There's those steady Eddie middle managers that just hold the line, and somehow, some way, they just stay under the radar, and they produce enough to not get liquidated, but they don't shine in a way that puts them, on a target anywhere. When I worked at Suzuki, there was a saying there that said, the protruding nail always gets hammered. So if you were someone that brought attention to yourself, if you were someone that always had ideas, or someone that always had a proposal to be more effective, more productive, save more money, if you were one of those people that always had something to offer, believe it or not, you were earmarked as someone that was trouble. Like, wow, this guy's got to go. He's rocking the boat too much. Newsflash, I was kind of the guy that rocked the boat. I'm a protruding nail. When I was leaving Ducati and was considering the job at Suzuki, I had a friend that worked at both. I had a friend that had worked at Ducati and had worked at Suzuki. And he told me, he said, Kurt, you got to be careful. The protruding nail always gets hammered. I know you don't know what that means yet, but in Japanese culture, it's this, it's this, it's this. He goes, you have a habit of being a protruding nail. He goes, it's great. You bring a lot of value to what he's like, you're smart. Your ideas are great. But it's, you got to know your audience. And I fear that you will not adjust to the audience at Suzuki. I worked there for about 4.5 years. He was right. I was not appreciated at Suzuki. There was a core group of people, handful of people that became my circle, that I had influence over, that loved everything that I was doing. And they egged me on. One of them was a vice president from Japan. We would have meetings, and he would pull me aside. He would say, Kurtzan, what you speak is very true. You must be more energetic. You must be more forceful when you promote your ideas. And I would say, you're the vice president. You are the boss of these other people telling me no. So for you to pull me aside and tell me that I need to be more forceful and that my ideas are good, that's really hard for me to understand, because there's me promoting these ideas to a handful of vice presidents and presidents of different departments and things. And then there's you, the liaison from Japan, telling me, be more forceful. Your ideas are good. You need to succeed. Well, I can succeed if you tell these other guys to let Kurt do his thing. It was such a weird deal. But here's the thing that I'm getting at. Obviously, I was excited to do the race. I have the Great Cycle Challenge coming up in September. I'm going to ride 400 miles in the month of September in an attempt to raise $500 for kids with brain cancer. So that's my thing. I do that every September. So I had something in July. I got something in September. And guess what just came up this weekend? There's going to be an event in October. It's going to be a mountain bike race in October for Halloween. So I'm going to sign up for that. And that's going to be in Emporia, Kansas. So I'm going to sign up for that. So you'll notice there's a trend here, right? I have an event July. I have an event September. I have an event October. And so by me keeping these events, I am giving myself, I'm not going to call it artificial motivation. It's very real. It's not artificial, but I'm giving myself external motivation to get good at what I do, to get better at what I do. So here's another thing. I'm talking about sports. What about work? So I have the podcast that I do with Toby Crines on the WP Minute. I have the podcast Membership Machine Show with Jonathan. I have the WP Tonic podcast with Jonathan. I have the Ask Me Anything call with Emily from Lifter LMS. And then I have the Mastermind call with Emily at Lifter LMS. And then lately, I've been having episodes come out on the Mañana No Mas show. We did Zach with Marooney. We just released the one. Oh my goodness. I want to say it was Barbara, but her name's not, maybe it was Barbara. Cancer Thriver, right? And then we just did another cancer survivor interview last week that's going to come out this week. And so when we take a look at that, we go, oh, okay, so we've got that going on. And then in order for me to keep fresh, for me to stay internally motivated. So let's bring this back. For me to stay internally motivated, I want to be able to process my ideas. So yeah, I'm talking to you live right now. That's part of this, but I'm also in the middle of creating a full-blown course on how to launch your own successful WordPress agency. I see a lot of people talking about plugins. I see a lot of people talking about vibe coding. I see a lot of people talking about all kinds of weird things in the WordPress space. But what I don't see people talking about is how do you get started in WordPress and then turn that into a revenue generating machine? How do you take yourself from hobbyist to freelancer to agency owner and grow your agency? And since I'm doing all these shows, since I'm doing an agency-based show with the WP Minute, a membership-based show with Membership Machine Show, and I'm teaching people how to use LMSs with Lifter LMS, it just stands to reason that the exposure I'm getting from all of these participants in the WordPress space, plus my own experience in the WordPress space, it's put me in a rare, I'm going to call it rare, but I get an unbelievably rare, transparent look at how people struggle and how people master this concept of creating revenue with WordPress. It's a difficult thing to think about because WordPress is open source. And so there's some of your mind that goes to, oh, well, it's free software, it's open source. The idea is everything's supposed to be free and on a budget and this, that, and the other thing. And so you have a lot of people that are like, oh, I can make you a website for $500. I can make you a website for $800. And you're thinking of the bare minimum that you can put forward to make a web product for somebody. But what people are missing is that there's a whole other side of the spectrum that's doing enterprise LMS work like we do at Mañana No Mas, $80, $90, $100,000. When I interviewed Anil Gupta, and he represents Multidots, and we were having a conversation, and he was saying, well, one of our customers is PepsiCo. Hold the horses. One of your customers is PepsiCo. Well, what's that look like? How do you have a conversation? And this was like the line out of the show, right? How do you have a conversation with somebody about being a big fish in a little pond when you're not even in the pond anymore? You're fishing out in the ocean. And he said, at the end of the day, a lot of the processes are the same. You're just talking to different people, and maybe your services are a little more processed, but all in all, it's the same work. And that is a huge inspiration for people because it comes down to a mind game. It comes down to, what do you do when the race is done? What challenge is next? Are you someone that needs to give yourself a challenge? And then how do you stay motivated to keep producing something new if there's no challenge? So for us, we're going to be launching it's September 1st is when we're going to launch this thing. Well underway. Like, a lot of the lessons are already fully recorded, fully edited, fully published. We are working with different distribution channels to make this course available in more than one place. So that'll be nice. But again, I haven't seen anybody come at this topic from this perspective. I was speaking at a high school, and I said, how many people in this room have ever heard of the word WordPress? And two hands went up. Well, so these kids are learning how to make video games, and they're learning how to code, and they're learning stuff that has value, but they're learning how to go to the next grade in school. They're learning how to move on to the next design school, or the next trade school, or the next whatever school. They're not learning about open source. And when I speak to the students, I'm like, right now, with your current knowledge of computers and keyboarding, you could literally go into business right now and make yourself $6,000 by summer. I mean, that's what I told them when I was talking at the high school. I said, how many kids would like to do that? All the hands went up. All the hands went up. But only one kid came up to me afterwards and said, can I have your email? I want to send you a message. See, and that's where we're at. Like, 60 kids I spoke to, 2 knew WordPress, and only 1 asked if they could get in touch with me after the talk. That to me is like, that's the student that's going to say, hey, can you teach me how to run an agency? And then I'm going to say, I've built this 47 lesson course to get you started. And then I've got an apprenticeship program that you can join. And through that apprenticeship program, we are going to give you hosting for a year, subscription tools for a year, and we're going to set you loose and let you start to build your own business over the next year. And then we want to bring you back and kind of do a review or a synopsis of how this worked and how we can improve the program for future students and apprentices. Folks, I'm 57. When I meet with other people in the WordPress space, a lot of people are in this range, and I'd like to bring some younger people in, but it's not as simple as saying, oh, just go get some young people. We got to make them want to do it. We got to show them that there's opportunity. We got to show them that that's a thing to do. And so, yeah, the race is done. What challenge is next? And I think about that from a 57-year-old's perspective. But then I switch back in my mind, and I go, well, what's the perspective? What's the perspective of a kid that's 17 or 18 years old getting out of high school? What race do they even know that they can join? What challenge do they think? Because their challenge was graduating high school. So is their challenge to go to another grade of school? Is their challenge to start their own business? Is their challenge to go just get a job? And so when I have these athletic events, and I don't know if this happens to everybody, my brain starts to swim with, how does this align with this? And how does this align with that? So the amount of energy that I get from expelling my energy in an athletic event, whether it's a Spartan race. So I don't even know if Warrior Dashes exist anymore, but I used to do those Warrior Dash things. So Spartan, Warrior Dash, Century Ride, doesn't matter what it was, right? Like, when I expend that energy, it gets me creative mentally on a whole different level too. And so I want to be able to provide this and push it forward for these younger people to understand, there's a whole bevy of opportunity out here We just have to sink our fingers into it, and we have to work for it. I'm seeing a lot of social media marketing for the easy button. The easy button isn't real. You know, when someone says, you're wasting your time to create a course and try to sell your course online, what you really need is your own mobile application. Okay, I hear you. What does that mobile application do? How do I get people to go to that? How does that monetize? So whether I'm promoting a mobile app or I'm promoting my own website with a course on it, I still have to get these users from somewhere. None of these are automatic, you know, customer generators. And so there's this one lady says, ever since I made $11 million selling my online course, I realized, now she says she realized after selling $11 million in online courses, she realized she was doing it wrong, and that this cycle of launching was taking too much energy and time from her, and she needs to put her sales on autopilot. Sign up for her free seminar, webinar, whatever, to learn how to put your sales on autopilot. Put your sales on autopilot. People don't buy. I want to phrase this in a way that makes sense. The course I'm building, perfect example. The course I'm building on how to grow your own agency. If I just had the course, How to Grow Your Own Agency, and it was all text and it was written like a book, how many people do you think would sign up? None. So I make it video based, and now it's based on me, right? So now they've got a little piece of me. They got a little contact with me through this course, and they go, "Oh, that's the guy that makes all the lives. That's the guy that does all the podcasts. He must know what he's doing. I want to participate in that. So now I'm going to get some of that. Now, people that want more access to me, they're going to sign up for the level that's going to either put them in the apprenticeship program or put them on the monthly office hour call or something like that. People don't buy training from an autopilot. They don't buy courses from some kind of autopilot thing. They want to buy access to the person. They want the connection. They want the communication from the person, from the entity, from the whatever you want to call it. I'm getting really frustrated, like especially with the AI thing. I use AI. A lot of people I know use AI. It's a great tool. They're great tools. But too many people are trying to use AI like it's everything, and it's not everything. It's missing one very important thing: you. And so I'm actually seeing a future where a lot of people are going to be using AI tools and then looking for human interaction to clean up the AI results. That's a whole marketing segment that's coming, and I haven't really seen it in fruition yet. I'm seeing a little bit of it with developers in the WordPress space. People create a plugin, they think they create a plugin, and then it doesn't work, or it does something weird, or it's got a bug, or it conflicts with other plugins. And so they end up hiring a developer to go, hey, can you go through this plugin to make it a real plugin instead of this vibe coded thing that doesn't work? And then, some developers are doing that at their normal rate, which I don't think they should be. I think they should take their normal rate and double it, because it's a whole lot more difficult to audit someone else's created code than it is to just create something yourself. For a developer, it's like me with editing. It's easier for me to write the content than it is for me to edit someone else's content. So you could hire me cheaper as a writer than you could hire me as an editor, right? All right. I have drolled on probably too long, and I could probably go for another 2 or 3 hours today. I'm fired up today. So happy Monday. The race is done. So my challenge for this span of time is done physically, and I'm looking forward to the next challenge. I'm one of those people. I need those challenges. If you are one of these middle managers I mentioned, just kind of muddles along, I want you to consider putting something on the calendar. Pick something, whatever you're into. Biking, running, hiking, sharpshooting, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know, whatever you're into. Pick something. Find an event. Get ready for that event. Do that event. See if you get that same kind of spike, that little dopamine spike. If you're someone that's used to existing on this constant plane, inject something into your schedule that makes you go, boop, right? See if it works. If it does, pick something professionally. Not like building the Eiffel Tower or something crazy, right? Just pick a little something professionally. Like, hey, I'm going to create a white paper on what I do for a living. Just easy. I'm just going to create this simple white paper on what I do for a living. Do that. Say, I'm going to create that this month, and I'm going to put it as a digital download in a third-party website somewhere, whatever. Just create something that, like a little product that you could do. Now, whether it sells or not, just get it done. Just get it done. Get it done, publish it, share the link, and then let the magic do the magic. If it sells, great. If it doesn't sell, that's fine. And then pick another project. I'm going to write a short little ebook about what I do for a living. Boom, put out that little ebook. I'm going to create a course. I'm going to, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be monumental. It just has to be something so that this can turn into a little like shoop, shoop. And you start to get like what does that look like? Because what's going to happen is as you add in some of these features or some of these things that you do, it's going to give you another layer to yourself. And you'll find that you begin to elevate some. Like I said, there are some people that are driven internally that are just always up here doing their thing. I'm going to be honest. I'm one of those internally driven people, but I need the events, right? So it's not uncommon for me to be a little bit like this, but externally when I'm like at the entrepreneur meetups or when I'm meeting professionals in the space, they generally see me at this level. They generally see me at the top. And I think there's a certain value in that. Like I said, at Suzuki, it wasn't appreciated. At Suzuki, they were like, this is not our culture. This doesn't fit. At Ducati, they liked it. Ducati liked that I would come in and go, I think we could do this. Right? So you got to find the right environment. You got to find the right things to motivate yourself. If you sign up for the race and the race is done, what challenge is next? Find yourself another challenge. Find yourself another something. Again, I know I put a lot of athletics into this talk, but I'm really trying to align that with what does that look like in business? What does it look like in business to give yourself a little challenge, accomplish it, give yourself another little challenge, accomplish it. And remember, these challenges can't be rated just on how many likes or shares or dollars you bring in through Stripe. It's the act of getting it done. It's the act of contributing. It's the act of doing something. And as like our big one is this big course. When we release this course in September, this is going to be enough dopamine for me just releasing the course that it's going to keep me going straight through. And the reason I picked September is I wanted something big enough, exciting enough that it could keep me going straight through winter, and it'll get me through to spring. And so, folks, I give you this big shout out now. Pick something. If your race is done, life isn't over. Pick another challenge and get ready for the next challenge. Do it. Get yourself inspired. Get going. Have a good one. Bye-bye.